conversations. I'm having conversations. I'm having conversations.
Welcome, everybody. Glad that you're joining us. We have a couple on today that you might recognize. It's been a while. This is Keith and Sarah Neigenfeld, and we are so glad that you guys are with us. It has been a while. Do you remember how long ago when you spoke at Access Church?
Yeah, probably 2.5, 3 years, maybe about 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, somewhere in that range.
It's been a little while. You guys are no longer, you were living in, were you guys in Carlsbad when we were getting together a few years ago?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Tell us where you're now, because we see it looks beautiful behind you. So tell us where you're at and why you guys are there.
Yeah, it is beautiful here. So we don't normally serve here, but we've been in Bangkok doing church planting, but Bangkok got kind of crazy with the virus, at least with the fears of the virus. So they started locking everything down, not letting people leave their condos, blocking off certain areas of the city. So we weren't allowed to meet as a church anymore. They had banned any meetings. So we said, well, we're not going to sit around in the city. We're going to get out. So we escaped the city of Bangkok, and we're on an island called Koh Lanta. And we're kind of in the middle of the jungle. We rented a bungalow, running the church from the middle of the woods. So social isolation at its finest.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy everywhere. And so it's good for people to see. It's like, man, it's around the world. And we'll talk a little bit later about just missions and how this kind of impacted and where you guys are at. But give us a little update just on the family, ages of the kids, kind of the stage of life you guys are at. How long you guys been married for, all that. Kind of give us an update, your worst sins, maybe, just like sharing stuff like that. But tell us a little bit about those that are new, because the last few years, probably 50% of our churches would be new to you guys. So just a little bit about your family and stuff.
You want to start with the sin part?
Yeah. Our kids they've grown a lot, obviously. Margaret is 4 now, and Lauren is 7. Lauren's in 1st grade, and Margaret is attending preschool at like a local Thai school. We've been married now, 12 years. And I know I'm trying to like do the math backwards.
You've been married a while, so you can start forgetting. It's kind of cool, so you're good.
Right? Like it's okay now.
It's in the acceptable range of forgetting.
How are the kids doing with this new way of living right now?
They're loving it. This is ideal situation for them. When we live in Bangkok, we live in a really small condo complex. Well,
it's a 30-story building. I think our whole condo, we have a 3-bedroom condo. I think it's about 600 something square feet. I know it's 60 meters, so whatever that is, I think it's maybe like,
it's small. Southern California is very small. Yeah.
So here all day, we don't see anybody, like we're sweating all day, it's a funky house, but we just go outside and make forts and run around in the woods, and so they're loving it.
Yeah. So it's good.
And the burning question with every couple, because sometimes we get some funny answers. Where did you guys meet?
We met at university. We both went to Simpson University, which is the CMA school in Northern California, in Redding, California, and we were at a pool party.
Pool party.
I remember I met Sarah, and I thought she was kind of cute, and so I talked to her, and a little bit, and then after the party, I talked to somebody else after that party, and I was like, hey, that Sarah girl, she seems pretty nice, and what's her deal? And the person was like, yeah. And she's really cool because she wants to be a missionary. And so I was like, bingo, that's done.
You don't meet too many of those. You don't meet too many of those. You got to get together when you can.
Exactly. You got to lock that down.
So you guys had that heart for missions right from the beginning, which is pretty cool. As far as how just then God really brought you guys together for what you're doing now.
Yeah.
We feel really grateful, I think, because I think it was important that both of us sensed a desire or a calling, you know, before we met each other. So it wasn't like one person feeling like this is where I'm supposed to go and having to convince the other. It was kind of a neat thing that we had that, I think, beforehand.
Well, how did it start for both of you guys? I don't know who wants to go first, but it'd be great to hear as far as, you know, what kind of a family you grew up in. Our church has a variety. I mean, there's some people, they grew up in a Christian home, and there's positives and negatives to everything. Everyone thinks that their story is either the hardest, or that it's like, no, sometimes growing up in a Christian home is difficult, but it's also a blessing. And then sometimes growing up in a home where you didn't hear about Jesus at all, in some ways it's a blessing because everything's fresh and new and exciting, but also there's some difficulties with that too. But it'd be great to know just a little bit, how did you guys grow up and where was God in the story as you were growing up?
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, it's kind of, we do have kind of unique, different stories. So my story really starts with my grandparents. And actually it starts with the Alliance, really. My grandparents were both, my grandfather was kind of a shady dude. He illegally joined the military at 16. He lied and said he was 18 years old. Joined the National Guard, was just kind of a, you know, a shady guy. This is in Norfolk, Virginia. And one day, an Alliance evangelist came to his town and did like one of those old school big tent revivals. This is in the 1930s.
Yep.
And gave his life to Christ and just did a complete 180. Dropped all of his sinful practices. I would say almost then, of course, not all of them, but really just God just took a hold of his life, radically changed him. Meanwhile, around that same time in San Diego in the 1920s, my great grandparents, someone invited them to First Alliance Church of San Diego, where they heard the gospel for the first time presented. They accepted Christ there. And so then my grandma and my grandfather both went to Nyack College, which was called the Missionary Training Institute back in the day, which was the Alliance school there. And they actually ended up serving as missionaries for about 40 years in Indonesia.
Wow.
And then after that, my grandfather came back and pastored in San Diego area, worked as a hospital chaplain up until his death at 93 years old. So really cool legacy. So I have that background, that legacy. So I have kind of like the great role model Christian background in my life. And for me though, you know, Christian home, my parents were business people. My dad was an entrepreneur, faithful Christians. And I grew up in the church. I knew God. I walked with God. I never went crazy, but it was never really just my own. And it really wasn't, I would say, from a young age, I felt a pull and a call to do missions. But I really didn't become a serious believer until university years. And in university years, I kind of had a deconstruction of everything, a complete deconstruction of my faith, my worldview. I went searching everywhere to see what really is the truth. Have I just been believing stuff because I was told this by my parents, read books from other religions, atheist literature, everything. And through that really was able to see that, no, the message of Christ is real and it's true. And so anyways, bringing all that stuff back and really honing in on what you're saying. Why missions? For me, did I have a call? Yes, I believe there was some form of a call, but the greater thing for me was not so much a call, which at times can be ambiguous, which can be just kind of a feeling people waiting for, but it was looking at my skill set, who I am as an individual, my hopes, my dreams, what I feel like God created me to be, and simply asking myself, what's the most kingdom effective thing I could do with my life? And for me, the answer to that question was bringing the good news to those who had not a large opportunity to hear it. So I would say that was the biggest motivating factor for me once my faith got real.
And I really appreciate how you talk about that as far as that calling, you know, because sometimes people think it has to be this supernatural burning feeling, you know, and 3 angels visit you and say, you know, and some people might have a real supernatural experience, but other times the supernatural can be through the natural of, you're gifted this way, I think I can be effective, let's go do it. And then God partners you at a pool party, you know, with another woman that, I mean, just God works supernaturally through natural ways. So I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that really we can identify with that sometimes a little bit easier, as far as we might not be called in the same way, but we're called to something.
I heard it once, someone once talked to it, they said it's kind of like the military, like during draft years, okay? Some people were drafted, some people just sign up and win. They're all soldiers together, they're all out on the front lines working together, and I think missions can be like that as well. So
I
I'm
love
not
that.
downplaying people have specific calls, but I mean, if you feel a pulse and you feel something to go, run with it, God along. So.
Well, it's neat to hear about that. Also, we got to experience firsthand when you came to our church. I think you're gifted with communication too. You know, the ability to clearly communicate something in a very simple way that's still motivating. I know we really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll be back and we can get you again encouraging our church. But it's neat to see use that giftedness, and then your giftedness in the church is encouraging too. So we appreciate that. Sarah, what about for you?
If I'm invited, I'll be there.
Okay. The invitation set. You're all set. So Sarah, what about for you?
Yeah, I mean, my background is a lot different. I came from a much more broken home. My parents were divorced when I was 4, and then my mom remarried when I was about 8. And I wasn't brought up in a Christian home. When my mom remarried my stepdad, they thought, well, we're trying to make this family thing work. So what should we do? We should take them to church. So we went to church, and I believe that's when the Lord really got a hold of my heart. I had so many questions. I was kind of raised Catholic, but again, very nominally so. So I knew a little bit about the Catholic Church, but I had so many questions about the differences between the way they did communion in the Catholic Church and then what they did on a Sunday service in the Christian church. I was so confused. And so I was asking a lot of questions. And I think through that time of being just really curious, I made the decision to become a believer. And it really became, I feel like Jesus really got a hold of me though in my junior high years. When I was about 12 years old, my real dad's parents were very sick. And for all that I knew, they didn't know Jesus. And so my mom took me back to go visit them one more time before they passed away. And as a 11, 12-year-old girl, I was trying to share the gospel with them, and my heart just really broke over the thought that I might never see them again. And so we came back to California, and I remember hearing the news of when they passed away. And I remember just lying in my bed at night, just weeping at the thought that these people that I really cared for, I might never have the chance to see again. And I believe that that was when God really got a hold of my heart to reach lost people. And so that was the beginning for me. And as I navigated what this looked like for my future, what schools to go to, I feel like God really led me to Simpson University, which is where I met Keith, and just seeking out how to be best equipped to go reach the lost. And when I was at Simpson, I also felt God. I went to Africa for a summer, and I really felt like God was calling me to go even one step further and become a nurse and bring something with me alongside the gospel. And so I studied to become a nurse, and became a nurse, worked in the States for a couple of years before we came here to Thailand as well. So that's kind of my background.
I love hearing the different ways. This is what's the beauty of storytelling, of different ways God calls us. So we're not looking for that formula. I mean, junior high, you see your heart breaking for your own family, and God using grief. I mean, that's a devastating thing that for a lot of young people that can make them go away from God. Reveal your heart for Jesus. And then I also like with missions too, where make sure that sometimes we need to train ourselves for a skill to be applicable for missions, rather than just I'm just gonna bring Jesus. It's like, well, bring some skills with you in order to survive or to help you do missions. And so it's I think it's neat that you know, that you did that too, and it's a very practical way to have spiritual impact.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot more in the stories there, but definitely want to jump into we're just reminding our church and sharing with our church as far as what you guys are doing right now. You're on, is it 3 years or 4 years that you're away before you come back?
3 years. This time's a 3-year term.
3-year term. And then it's usually about 1 year back in the United States.
Correct.
Yeah. And you guys are about a year away. So you're 2 years in. And
Yeah.
share with us the ministry you've been doing. And then just as missionaries, sometimes we always hear just the great stories, and it can suck you into missions. And for some of us who get into missions, like, whoa, there's a whole other side that's a little difficult. Give us what you've been seeing God either just do in you, because whenever we do ministry, God works in us. Some things you're really stoked about what He's doing through you guys, and then what are just challenges or obstacles that you've seen that have been like, yeah, this is a challenge, you know, and but it's a reality of mission. So it'd be great just to hear what you guys are doing and all that.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, so when we came back, so our previous term, just to give some background, the previous term we worked in a rural area of Thailand. It was called the Isan region of Thailand. Small town, working in the villages, helping start up churches among the rural population. Very, very dry ground. And we noticed that a lot of the people who were becoming believers either when they were in another country working or in the cities during university time, things like that. So we thought, what if we could reach these people on a more level playing field? So we thought, what about Bangkok? What about going to a local university and starting a church on a university campus? And then the second thing was, we kind of thought, how could I not just be like, hey, I'm Keith the missionary, but how could we actually have an organic connection with some of these people? So long story short, I enrolled in a PhD program at the university. It's called Assumption University in Bangkok. Enrolled in this program in philosophy, so I'm completing my PhD in philosophy and religion at the university. The teaching is in English, but the majority of the people who attend are Thai. Brian, are you still there, by the way?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Good. Okay, you were smiling again at us, Frozen. So that's good. So our goal was to plant a Thai church. Kept working, trying to reach Thai people on campus. Started a Bible study on campus. We had about 12 people coming to this Bible study. They were from 9 different countries.
Wow.
So all of a sudden we were like, we got to reach these people. God's given us this fruit. We need to go after the international. So we started Alliance University Center. It's a church plant and an English center right next to the university campus. About a year now, it's been a year and a couple months ago. God's really just blessed it. Came out of left field. It wasn't something we thought, we knew we'd plant a church, but it wasn't something we thought we'd do international ministry. We've seen Thai people make a commitment for Christ, Chinese people, you know, so we've seen people growing, learning to follow Jesus. We've seen a few people come to the Lord who are growing and becoming disciples. The church we felt like was growing. Our Sunday service was growing. And then the virus hit and basically just shut down all of our ministry. And what we're dealing with, it's really unique in our situation, is many people during this time are returning to their home countries. So we've had a handful of people who were a part of our small church plant, right, and now with the virus, they've gone back. Like I was just talking, we had these 3 guys. They're our worship team. They're from India. 3 guys from India. I would say they're some of our most solid attenders, part of our church. And they just wrote me last week and they said, by the way, we're cutting our time short. They were studying their master's degree at the university. Right. I said, we're going back to, I said, will I see you again? They said, I don't know. We don't have any plans to come back maybe next year. So yeah, it's taken a hit because we're not dealing with local people. We're dealing with displaced people who now they're really displaced. So
that's the interesting thing about missions is what I've really seen is you have to be such a creative problem solver because unique challenges happen with cross-cultural missions. I mean, to me, everybody's a missionary. If someone's working a job here, they're a missionary. But cross-cultural missions presents a lot of challenges, and you have to be creative with how you get around them. And I like your honesty as far as, and I think it happens here in the United States. Sometimes we're ministering and it's hard ground. and we can't view ourselves like we do other ministries. And I think comparing is so easy in ministry. And it's just soil down the block could be different than soil over here. And sometimes God calls us to where you're going to work hard ground, and the goal isn't fruit. It's just be faithful. Someone else might cultivate it. Sounds like you've had almost two different ministries with the time that you had, where one was pretty hard ground, and then, I mean, incredible fruit in this time.
Absolutely, that's absolutely correct. And so it's been almost two different terms. And I think what's been really healthy potentially for me is I tend to ascribe value to myself. This is a wrong thing, but I tend to ascribe value to myself based on Brian, are you there?
Yeah, still here.
Great. Your video is slowed from your talking, so it looks like you're talking to us, but you're not. I tend to ascribe value to myself based on results, based on what I've done. And I think by having a first term that was really dry and really difficult, we realized this term that while sure, it has to do with the work we've put in and some of the giftings God given us, that really at the end of the day, it's God who's brought people in. It's God who's done the work. We've just simply been a vessel. And I think it's been it's tough to have those times of not seeing fruit and of just dryness, but just perpetually reminding ourselves that God calls us to be faithful, not successful. And then when God does bring in the success, and when God does bring in, the fruit, you can actually really ascribe it and say, okay, Lord, this is your ministry. You've done this. So,
amen. Yeah, absolutely. What have you seen missions, how has it shaped you as a Christian, just internally, as far as, like, to me, the reason I enjoy leadership is I'm on the forefront of change. Because you can't be a leader if you're not allowing God just to, well, you can be a leader, you can be a hypocrite, but it's not very good in the end, even if you're successful when you stand for Jesus. But I love what leadership does to me, not just to others. How have you guys seen being on the mission field shape you in your faith, or just as a person, or even in your marriage or family?
yeah. I can go first, you can add. I think it's shaped my theology rather significantly. This may be a borderline controversial point in some churches, but I've really seen the concept of of the Holy Spirit calling specific people to follow him. And in that we'll perpetually have people who by all means, they look like they're the person who's the ripest or the closest to becoming a Christian. And we'll pursue that person, we'll go after that person. Everything seems like this is going to be the person, and no fruit will happen. And we'll see people who it's like, this dude's never going to become a Christian. He's the last person I would choose, but God brings people in. I would say the most solid believer in our church. I don't know about our church. Yeah. You might be more solid than him. But
well played. Hey, well played. Good job. Yeah.
Our most solid of the people we've seen come to Christ, the most solid guy was this Thai atheist guy in my philosophy program, who was not only almost everyone in Thailand is Buddhist. So to become an atheist in Thailand means you've really thought through your stuff and rejected everything. So this guy was your typical angry atheist. And I would see him every day talking about the Lord. He would play poker every day at this coffee shop. So I'd go sit down with him and we'd hang out. But through time, in just 6 months, the guy he dresses like a cowboy. I wish you could picture this guy. He wears leather every day. Thai guy.
It's hot here.
He can grow a better mustache. Has a mustache. Wow. He's doing his master's in philosophy. Fu Manchu mustache, ponytail. Okay, and is so committed to this look that he'll wear leather chaps and leather vest every day.
I want to be that guy's friend. That's a guy you want to hang out with on a Saturday night, man.
Absolutely. So the guy would come to our church. I hardly even, I invited him, but didn't put a lot of hope that he'd come. Starts coming every Sunday. Would sit outside of our church, be vaping, and would come into the service. And, after he was coming for a while, I said, hey man, you've been coming for a while. And we'd hash through a lot of things together. I said, one of these days you need to just decide, are you going to become a Christian? Are you ready to follow Jesus? And he looks at me and he goes, next week, I will. And so I'm thinking, oh man, I'm never going to see him again. I told him, I said, hey, if next week you don't want to become a Christian, you're still welcome here. You can still come back to our church.
Yeah.
You know, next week he's standing outside of our church. Right before the service, we do coffee before the service. He's standing across from our church behind a car, just vaping. And I said, hey, it's kind of awkward. One of those awkward conversations like, hey man, so last week you want to follow Jesus. He says, yeah. I said, are you ready today? He said, absolutely I am. And basically then he inferred, he's like, and I want to show everyone that I'm following Jesus. So that day of the service, he came up front, everyone in the church prayed for him. 8 years later.
Yeah.
That was
maybe not even a year.
That was like
Not
April. Yeah, maybe not, but
No,
not even a year. Probably 11 months later, the guy wants to be a pastor. I'm discipling him online right now, and he said twice a week. And he asked me, he said, could we do this every day? I'm like, I don't know if I have the time to do this every day, but you know.
Dude, hey, he's hungrier than you right now, man.
Hungry than me. What was the question? Yeah. Anyway, completely evident that God had his hand. God was chasing down this guy, you know, a guy who was running from the Lord. Never would have chosen this guy as the guy, you know, who would have come and who would have had a genuine faith. And here he is today. So I think the Lord has just shown me that when God gets a hold of people, when the Holy Spirit goes after some people, you don't know who it's going to be, but God's doing something big there. So that's kind of been a huge thing for me, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's shaped us in a lot of ways. I think some practical ways that mission shapes you is you learn to rely on each other. Like as a family unit, the four of us rely on each other because we all understand each other in a way that those around us, those that we're ministering to, and those even other family members back home, that they can't relate to us in the same way that the four of us can relate. And so it really draws you closely together as a family. I think sometimes it's hard, but knowing that we have each other and knowing that the kids have each other and they have us, it really is a beautiful way. That's like a practical thing that really has shaped us even just as a family. I think another thing too is Keith and I are completely different. Like I think we're like on opposite spectrums of personality and gifting and like anything you think of, we're opposites in that regard. And so it's really neat because like we're our team, we're each other's team. Like when we started this church plant, we had to lean on each other's giftings and say like, I know I'm not good at this, I need you to step up and help me out here. And likewise with the other partner. And so you really just see how important the other side of the giftings really are and how valuable they are and how beautifully God can use them to work together and how we can do this together as a team. And so those are like some more practical ways that missions has shaped us as a family.
Any surprises as you guys, because how long have you been doing missions now for? How many years?
7.
Yeah, about
almost
7
7 years. 7 years? 7 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good chunk of time. What are things that now that you look back that either, you know, if you would have told yourself before that either surprised you, or what are just maybe some challenges or obstacles that's like, hey, just be ready for this, that you would share with yourself from 7 or 8 years ago?
I think the need for creativity.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much you'd need that, you know? And so like, I think the world has become so commercialized and the world has been so, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Globalized. Globalization is huge. And so I think like, you know, I think in my naive self, I kind of thought I could just go to a village and just preach the gospel and everyone's going to be interested. I just invite people to a meeting and they're going to come sit to me. You know what I mean? And so like realizing like, just like, I mean, it's incredibly similar to you guys in the States as well, right? Like the age we live in, there's always something else for people to be doing. There's a bunch of competing voices, competing for their time, competing for their hearts, competing for their, you know, and so I think just realizing like the need for out of the box thinking, the need for, You know, it's like sometimes you think it's just like, it is in certain countries. Like I know people in Africa, they literally just go to a village, show the Jesus film, then they say, we believe that Jesus is the same today and forever. Is there anyone sick? They pray for the sick. They see some people get well. Then they have like 80 people come to Christ, you know.
It's still happening.
Still happening, but Thailand is so advanced, and Thailand is very, yeah, so I think that was it. Just the need to always be growing and creatively, actively brainstorming and thinking, how can we reach these people and how can so that was, I think, a thing for me.
You know, and I would agree with that. As far as I would tell myself, it's more complicated than you realize, because you go to a conference and they have to simplify it. In order to write a book or in order to have a conference, you need to reduce it to its lowest common denominator. And so when you're young, you think, oh yeah, I just need to throw down a great sermon, or oh, they did this, I just need to heal someone in the village. But what I've seen is every environment has, it's more complicated than that. In America, we'll just open it up, and if you have great worship, great children's ministry, you're gonna rock and roll. And even I've been to those African villages, and you know, I remember one would go on, we give the gospel, and again, you simply think, well, we're just gonna give the gospel, and hey, you're good to go, trust Jesus. And we didn't have a very good response. Well, then we talked to the guy who we thought he was in charge, he wasn't. He speaks with us in secret, doesn't want to be seen, and he goes, I believe what you're saying, but I'll be killed by my brother. He's the village chief. And he goes, what should I do? Well, seminary didn't prepare me for that, to meet with a guy who, you know what I mean? It's like, in my answer, I better be very careful if I'm cavalier with that. But the power of that moment, as far as this guy was literally gonna have to accept Christ and give his life right there. And I never experienced that in my life. It's just, I would have told my younger self, kind of like you, be creative, and it's more complicated than you realize. It's not a conference, take notes and you're gonna be able to implement. It's just, that's not the way ministry is. So I agree.
Yeah.
Sarah, what about for you?
Yeah, I think one thing that I thought that when you become a missionary, you just get to use everything that you're good at. You get to just step into all these giftings that you've been given and just thrive. And there's a part of that that's true, but you have to do everything. Like, you have to step out and do things that you're not good at for the sake of advancing the kingdom. And I feel like I've had to do that in huge, we both have, really.
I do so much stupid stuff that I hate for the gospel that I never thought. I mean, like, I remember like sitting and like doing dances for little kids and singing and jumping around. I'm like, what the heck am I doing? I didn't go to seminary to like come jumping around and like, you know, putting on puppet shows.
But it's stretching. It's really stretching. I mean, in silly ways sometimes, but even just logistically stepping out and doing things that you're like, I'm not good at this. I don't feel like I'm good at this. I'm probably actually not good at this, but I still need to do it, because if I don't go out and I'm not following through with these things, then who else is? And so that was surprising, because I thought it would be a more like fitted experience where you get to just step into what you're good at and really thrive. And there's a part of that, but that's not the whole picture.
Not at all. Yeah. And I think ministries like that, where again, we just think we're going to be on our strengths. Like, no, you really gotta, you know, be willing to be stretched and be frustrated and allow God to work through that, where you think, well, he can't because I'm so dysfunctional in that way, or I'm not strong. And it's like, no, you got to watch God use you in your frustration too.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, hey, I appreciate your time. I hope that we have a chance to keep interviewing you guys, checking in, and then definitely when you come back, it'd be great to see you. For those of you watching, we were able to, I believe last August, we Tithe with Missions kind of once a year, where we just give out of our budget, and we gave to Mark Porter down in Ocean Beach Regeneration Church, supported him. And last year, if you give to Access, we were able to support the Neigenfelds also, and it was our honor. Wish we could have done more, want to do more, want to see you guys flourish. And we're just super proud of you. I always enjoy talking with you both. And yeah, just look forward to more. So we'll be praying for you guys. Now we know how to pray more. And especially just with the lockdown, how unique it is there, really praying you can get back to ministry, because you got about 1 year to go. Would that be pretty accurate?
Yeah.
So thank you guys for your time. We really appreciate it, and take care.
Hey, and I just want to say, really thank you, Access Church. I want to thank you guys and just let you know, like, anything that we're doing here, you guys are a small part of that as well. And so you guys, what you're doing, just as when you're doing things in your area, I can get excited about what you're doing because I know that you guys are part of the Alliance family and you guys are part of that. And when we're doing stuff, I hope that you guys sense that through your prayers and giving, but just being a part of the family, man, that we don't take you guys for granted, and we realize what it is, a great blessing that we're in it together. So if we do something messed up, know that you're part of that as well. So
That's all. We appreciate you guys. All right, take care. Have a good one. We'll talk to you later. All right. Thanks.
Thanks. God bless you guys.
Conversations. I'm having conversations. I'm having conversations.